Step in the ring, it's time to play. Coach Rene and Matt lead the way. Radical MMA brings the heat. The martial culture podcast can't be beat. Punches fly.
Okay, we are officially back after a long hiatus.
Your eyes are not deceiving you.
Yes.
This is actually what we look like too, because now we're doing video.
Yes, we're doing video too. Fantastic. So I'm so excited, and we got some big news. So our students are doing really well, and Sandro, one of my students, who just started out when we took a little break, he won the title and has defended it like 6 or 7 times at 155 at ECF. Mm-hmm. He's fighting this weekend to defend it one more time.
Wow!
So if he does, he'll be 13 and 1. Really, he has another loss, but that was the one we won where we got disqualified. But we
don't count that one.
Yes, yeah, we won't count that. Complete whatever. But anyway, and then Devin, who is the kind of like uncrowned champion of our gym, is fighting for a title at 145 finally. What happened with Devin is very interesting, and it's like really like it shows the difference between what MMA is now and what MMA was when I grew up. When MMA grew up, nobody did it for money and nobody did it for notoriety. They just did it to, test their martial arts skills and fight, and because of the love of the sport. And people would fight anyone, right? And now it's become much more like boxing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. What I mean by this is people pick their opponents very carefully. So boxing trainers are known to protect their amateur fighters and give them only challenges that they think they can deal with, but eat every single step a progressively more difficult challenge, and they grow up. And to some extent I can understand that, but also the other thing is this: amateur, particularly in MMA, is where you should face a lot of adversity, because your amateur record, nobody really cares. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. It's when you go professional, right? But the other thing is it's just sort of martial arts spirit. I grew up with I can't choose who's going to assault me in the street. I can't say, well, actually, you're 50 pounds heavier than me, so why don't you cut weight and then you can mug me in another week?
That's right. You should be the aggressor.
Exactly.
You can choose who you beat up.
Exactly. I can choose, yes. Yeah. Just be an awful psychopathic bully. But, so for me, in our academy, we have never, ever turned down a fight, because we just fight anybody. And win, lose, or draw, we'll just fight anybody, and because you're just going to learn. That being said, I'm very confident in our students that their defensive skills are enough that even if they're in adversity, they're not going to get hurt, which is really the important part.
Like if somebody comes in with a knife.
Right, I know, right? Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Is Sandro going pro?
You know what? Okay, so this is the thing. So I'll tell you exactly. That's a great question. I'll tell you exactly what happened. So in the lead up to this fight, the coach of our opponent went online and said Sandro is sandbagging. He should be a pro. And I think his background is a little bit in the boxing thing, because Sandro's almost undefeated. He's just really one loss, and so not undefeated, but close, right? And he's doing really well, and a lot of his fights finish in the first round. Mm-hmm. So they're like, go, but the thing is, I don't believe in rushing people to pro level, because everybody's in a rush to be pro. Everybody's in a rush. I want to be pro. I had one person I knew, and he stopped training with us, and he shouldn't have even fought an amateur for when he started, but then he started getting okay, and then he went pro really early, and his pro record, he wasn't ready for it, because every fight at pro matters. It matters. It's like your resume, people look, what did you hear? What did you hear? At amateur, it's like junior high school. Nobody cares what you did in high school and junior high school. But they care maybe what college you went to or what you did in your work experience.
Do people just try to go pro because they want to make money?
Yeah, they want to make money. And also, the other thing is the cachet of being a pro fighter. That's what I see here in New York. Sure. It's not even money. It's more like, yeah, I want to be pro so you can say on Instagram, I'm a pro MMA fighter. And it's not for any other reason other than this really sad attempt at external validation rather than, hey, let me develop this craft, this skill. And when I go pro, I will already be so seasoned that I'm ready to jump in the water heads in. And you know, one of the people I respect a lot is, you know, of course, Habib's team, their team. And their team does very, very well. And of course, I think stylistically, they have a lot of things going technically. But the one thing is they have hundreds of matches in combat sambo. Now, combat sambo is basically MMA. But imagine having like 100 matches. That's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And then they went into amateur MMA, and then they went into pro. So I don't know how many, you can't even tell. I don't know how many combat sambo matches Islam Makhachev or Habib had. But I'm guaranteeing you, it's in the high 2 digits to maybe 3 digits.
It's got to be such a hard decision to go pro because, like, if you wait too long, what if you get an injury and then you can't go pro ever, or you're too old, or I don't know. Just people go from high school right to the pros because they want to avoid college if they can because they can make money.
Right, and also that's another thing is in high school they did get. I mean, if you're talking like basketball, football, like that, they probably did get a lot of serious court or field experience because the high school games can be you can play a lot
like
and then you can play it up I mean, like I don't really know basketball football, but I mean, I'm sure that it's a pretty high level in terms of athletics in general. Obviously it wouldn't be the same as college, collegiate or pro, but I'm sure there are athletes coming out of high school that are going to these sports that have serious experience, you know.
Do you find that maybe there's a point in someone's career where they have to go pro because there's nobody left at amateur to fight?
Exactly. So this is what happened. So Devin fought in LFA, and he fought twice. The first time he lost, and that was like a kind of mental thing that we were in LFA. For the listeners who don't know, it is part of the UFC Fight Pass show. It's like one of the major, if not the major, feeder organization to the UFC. And there's a few, but that one really feeds into the UFC all the time. Almost all the famous fighters that we know probably had at least one fight in LFA. And so it's funny, we went to go to LFA, and in the room, Alex Pereira, the UFC light heavyweight champion at one point, was there, and also Corey Sandhagen was there cornering his guys. They're all like, we're like, oh,
just hanging out.
Yeah, they're just hanging out. And actually, Corey Sandhagen was a really, really cool guy. But so we went to the LFA. The first one, we lost a split decision, and it just wasn't. We made a lot of mistakes in driving up and cutting weight and things like that, and also mentally, Devin wasn't quite mentally prepared for like such a professional high level show. We got intimidated a little bit, but technically he did fine. He just the other guy was also very good wrestler, and so we had some things go well for us, but we just couldn't get the rev engine going. So it lit a fire under Devin, and we went back.
That's good. And people don't recover from those kind of things.
We went back and we fought this guy who's undefeated, who's a very good striker, and Devin whooped him in under 90 seconds and just crushed him.
Too fast.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. So what happened was, according to the LFA people, I mean, it's something like 50 people declined to fight Devin because they're like, they don't want to chance it. So they're like, it's too hard to find opponents at amateur. They're like, call us when he goes pro. So yeah, I mean, it's a problem. But the thing is, Devin he's not like Sandro. He only has 5-6 fights. Damn. So
people are already scared of him.
Yeah, I know, right? And and that's happened so many times. But now he was supposed to be up for they were kind of maybe going to do like an amateur title in that, but they kind of fell through. He fought in this other show called PMMA, and he won, but that show folded, unfortunately. The promoter's a great guy. He just couldn't manage the promotion well with another job and some other issues going on, health issues.
He should have gone pro. Just kidding.
So So that show with us. So there was 2 shows where Devin was going to fight for the title. So now we're at the 145 title match for ECF, and it's good because if you're the title holder, if people want to be the title winner, they have to fight him. So more people will come to him. So I think as a title holder, we won't have that problem as much.
They have to,
you know. And the same thing with Sandro. When Sandro took the title, we had kind of guaranteed opponents because everybody wants to fight for the title.
Sure.
You know, that's the carrot that they're dangling in front of people.
Titles.
Yes.
Does he get a belt?
Yes, of course.
It
You
looks
haven't
cool.
seen a dojo?
I've seen all the belts. I figured they were all yours.
No, none of them. They're all my students.
No.
I first of all, I never got a belt. It was all like semi legal. So there was
that was
so this is
back in the 40s, right?
In the 40s. Thank you very much, Matthew. You know, I get this from my students too the other day. It's like Rene was around in the age of the dinosaurs. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so
does he keep the belt or do you put it in the dojo?
well, okay, so Sandro's cool because he has one at home and he has like 7 in the academy, right? But Devin's like, yeah, I don't keep mine. Devin's like, when I get mine, ain't going to the dojo.
Now, when if they defend their title, do they get another belt?
Yeah, they get another one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So everybody's got a belt. Come on, Sandro, give Rene one of your belts.
I know. No, Sandro's he's cool.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Devin. Devin is like, I win the belt.
Devin.
I'm keeping it at home.
Well, when you get your
I think
second and your
he's gonna
third.
sleep with it or something. You know?
I'd wear it out.
You-
Can you wear it? Is it like a real belt? Like
Yeah, of course.
wear it around.
I know.
We
I
need
mean,
to get.
it looks like a Viking girdle. Like a pro wrestling belt.
We need
or
to
a
get.
boxing
We
belt.
need
It's
to
like
get
big,
belts.
but
Martial culture belts.
we need. You know what? We should have a martial culture like title.
Yeah, and we can give it out to. I'll give it to
Or
you.
like thumb wrestling or something.
Yeah, and every time that you tase me, and then I'll give you the belt as a win, and then then you'll give it back to me, and we'll just,
After you tease, I'll tease you. You tease me.
yeah.
All right.
Back to the story. So
Yeah. No. So this is really cool. It's like, Devin was kind of like our uncrowned champion,
Yeah.
and it's hard. It's like it makes me think. Just an aside, it's like, what is the point of we are studying martial arts, right? Is it a point to just win, like get easy wins, or is it a point to test yourself? And while I understand the grooming of fighters step by step, grooming, honing their technique, but when you're so protective, then they don't feel adversity.
Mhm.
And so this is the thing is I don't agree with it. I'm like, we're anytime, any place, anywhere, let's go. And that's the feeling I want from my fighters and the orientation. But as I said, most people are now following the protective boxing model, but it's sort of like parents. If you are this helicopter parent and you overprotect your kid, which you see today, it develops a lack of independence and a lack of confidence in your children and a lack of ability to deal with adversity. And this is like a big, I don't know, Gen Z kind of issue, right? Or at least that's what I've been told, that they're not so good at dealing with adversity because of this helicopter approach.
Mhm.
And the same thing with coaching is like an amateur. I don't believe in going through we want this opponent, we want that one. This happened in boxing. There's so many boxers that at amateur were undefeated because they're fighting these tomato candy kind of people. So it's like 200-0 or something crazy, right?
Class Joe.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly, right. And but it's very disappointing to me to see that the thing has changed. That being said, I understand it at some level. There's got to be a happy medium. But the thing is also, like, for the listeners out there, the same thing is like, what's the point of you training martial? Is it just exercise? I hope not. It's to develop some sort of steel in your soul. Mm. So, this is the thing is, when I was training, right, you would see in a lot of gyms, we don't do this at Radical. Radical, yeah, I pick the partners who you fight, and we rotate, and nobody gets to choose their partners. Everybody has to fight who I say. But in a lot of gyms, like, you'll see this. You'll see the guy walk in, and he's maybe a blue belt. And then, another, like a really good blue belt or purple belt say, hey, you want to spar? And then they'll say, nah, I'm a little injured today. And then a really, really sucky white belt will come in. And then they'll roll with him and then smash him and then go home and say, yeah, I did great today. It's like there's so many people like that. And this is like terrible. It's the same thing. It's like you're picking your opponents instead of going in. And one of the things that one of my teachers said to me, he's like, when you go into a room, who's the last person you want to train with that you know it's going to be the hardest role? You go up to him and you say, that's the first guy you go to.
It's like prison.
It's like prison. That's right. Beat up the toughest guy.
Or start crying immediately, which both works in a dojo too, right? And nobody will mess with you.
I don't think crying will work.
No?
Yeah. We'll just tease you after. No, we don't do that. But it's like you have to like, martial arts is to develop some steel in your soul, some spirit, and you have to face your fears, your demons, the tough roles. You have to get adversity, because most people go to the gym and they're like, they want to feel good at the end. But the good is like, oh yeah, beat some people, something like that. That shouldn't make you feel good. What should feel good is that you improved. You went through a fire and came out the other side. Like, oh, I could never escape this position. Well, this guy used to always hit me in the face all the time. But now, today, my defense was really, really, really on point. And, you know, like I was telling the student today, I'm like, the first thing, you shouldn't be proud when you tap someone. You should be proud when you escape a really good move, technically, or you do something technical. But you should be proud of your long-term achievement, where you are in 6, 7, 8 months. But each individual role should be like emotionally zero. You know, you shouldn't be like, yeah, I tapped that guy. Oh, I'm the man. You know, and you should be going into practice. What's the most challenging guy in the room? Let me take that guy. Not every role, because some roles you want to like experiment with the new move or something like that. But you can't avoid the hard stuff. You know, the more you try to avoid the hard stuff in life, the more it comes at you unexpectedly. You know, so I think, you know, it's sort of like goes against my martial code to like pick and choose opponents like that. But I guess that's what people are doing. So literally over 50 people in that elevate, like the guy told me, declined to fight him. And then in the other tournaments, the other shows was the same. It was, I stopped counting at like, you know, 40 or 50, you know, it's crazy. So like, hopefully we get this, but obviously if we just can't ever get a fight again, it's time to go pro, you know? Yeah, for sure. But I don't want to put them into positions like Sandro is doing very well, but there's a lot of little things we have to work on before that could really cause problems when he goes pro. Pro is not learn on the job. Get your game set and then go pro, you know, and then refine, of course. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. We have this weekend is like an amazing title fight. And again, it's very interesting. So do you know the main there's two title fights. Do you know what they are this weekend?
I don't know anything.
You don't know anything? It's okay. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
It's Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira.
Oh.
Yeah, and Ilia Topuria is the champion at 145, but he vacated, went up to 155. Right? And he wanted to fight Islam Makhachev, but Islam Makhachev went to 170. So now he's fighting Charles Oliveira for the title, who Charles lost. The only loss he's had in the recent years was to Makhachev. So he's the number one contender. And this is a really interesting thing. So do you know how I run the practice at Radical? How it works? Like, so I think I mentioned a few times, but we switched to MMA all the time. So it wasn't like one day is Thai boxing, one day is wrestling, one day is judo, one day is jiu-jitsu. We used to do that. But Joe Rogan was the first person to say this. He said, this is years ago, he said, you know, everybody starts individual styles and then they go to MMA. But he's like, you're going to have people groomed in an MMA environment all the time, where all they do is MMA, and you're going to see the results. And again, Khabib and Islam are like that. Now, some days they just do grappling, but they come from a combat Sambo background, which is MMA, and that's the main base of their training, which is striking to wrestling to ground, right? And doing all the elements of combat in one training session, seamlessly blending striking to wrestling, wrestling to striking, striking to wrestling to ground, striking to ground, striking against ground defense, striking, get back up, wrestle. Like mixing the aspects, like puzzle pieces back and forth versus just one puzzle piece at a time. Now, you can see this. It's not just that, but you have a number of fighters like there's a few Mexican coming up. I know. Now I forgot his name, but there's a couple Mexican fighters. They train like that. Now, like some days they're going to work on certain techniques, but their main training is MMA. But Ilia Topuria is different. He says, no, I'm just going to do boxing with a boxing coach. I'm just going to do wrestling with the wrestling guy. And then in camp, I'll do MMA training. But he's like, I'll really hone. Now, there is a precedent for someone doing MMA, but then going to a specialist to refine a certain element. George St. Pierre did that. Sense. And you remember George St. Pierre went to Wildcard Gym to work with the coach there, the very famous coach. And he did that because he wanted to just focus on improving the mechanics of a jab. But that was a very short, structured period. And then he went back and did his regular MMA training. And but Ilia Topuria doesn't do that. Like he stays like for months in one discipline, or he'll do like Mondays always boxing, Tuesdays always wrestling. And I actually think this is going to prove to be his undoing. So he is the by far favorite in this match. But I'm going to come and say it. I'm not saying he's going to lose, but I'm saying it is going to be a very competitive fight. And one of the things Charles Oliveira is very good at is going from one discipline to another without thinking. He even jumps guard sometimes, which I wouldn't agree with, but he's like striking and then he jumps guard and tries to like submit you from guard. But he's very good at transitioning from striking to jumping on your back and choking you out. Really good. You're not going to develop that transitional, just that lightning fast decision-making ability if you're just doing boxing and then tomorrow you just do jiu-jitsu. You're not going to see the linkage. Yeah. Right? You're not going to see how they fit. And so I actually, look, I'm putting money down. I put money down on Oliveira. Now, I can't, it's like, Ilia Topuria is so good that anything could happen. He is a very good fighter. Like he's also naturally a very gifted athlete, right? And he legitimately started martial arts very, very young, and judo and wrestling as a kid. So, he has some very serious martial arts bona fides, and his boxing is crisp. But one, it's a new weight class. The opponent has reach, and the Oliveira grew up in Chuta Box. Chuta Box is the academy in Brazil where it's MMA all the time. And this is why, Charles Oliveira has more submission victories than anybody else in the UFC. Do you know why? Because he's MMA jiu-jitsu and he's able to get him. Versus like some of these jiu-jitsu specialists that they it's hard for them to figure out how to mix the two. And again, individual style training versus mixed. Shoot the box training is very mixed. And they train in what we call in our academy shoot boxing, which is striking to wrestling and then striking wrestling to ground. Now there might be a day where we're like focusing more on the striking part, but that doesn't mean you don't wrestle in that thing. Like you have to strike to defend, to take down and get back up, right? Or we'll do more ground. Like you got to take that guy and submit him, but this guy's got to try to stand up, right, and punch you. And if he stands up, you got to take him down again. So your goal is to submit him. His goal is not to get submitted, but we start in an MMA contact. That's how Charles Oliveira trains. So, and it's one of the reasons why he's best in the world. And I'm going to tell you, I really think that we're going to see a difference in preparedness between the two fighters. That being said, Ilia Topuria is a once in a lifetime gifted athlete. So the chance that he could hit, and he has knockout power, the chance that he could hit Charles Oliveira on the button and finish the fight, very high. So, I just don't think it is. So I'm actually putting some money. All right,
put his money.
And if I win, I'm donating all to charity. So it's not about the.
I'm charity.
You're charity.
So maybe Oliveira should be focusing on those transitions and like take him from
absolutely
from discipline to discipline.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's I think what he's going to do if he wants to win. Particularly beat Topuria when he comes in tight because he likes close up boxing. you're boxing. Guess what doesn't exist in boxing? Elbows. So his boxing coach is not going to prepare him for a lot of elbow attacks.
Damn.
Right? Because the boxing coach isn't. And this happened to me. So I'll tell you, one of the reasons I realized the mistake, and I trained people wrong for years, because everybody said, no, you can't go into MMA. You can't do that. You have to do the disciplines separately, get a foundation, and go. And a lot of people still say that, right? But what happened was I went to a kickboxing coach. Right? Now, my goal when I fought was to clinch and take gals and submit them. But a lot of the combination would be like 1-2, get out. 1-2, head movement, get out. And then he would say, get out, get out. It wouldn't be get in. And I mean, I was trying to be coachable and, do what he said. But in the fight, my brain just fizzled. Do I go in, out, pop, and I knocked out. It's my only loss. And I'm not going to put it on the coach only. I mean, there was a lot of factors. I mean, blaming other people for things that happen is cowardly bullcrap. So it's on me. That being said, I could feel that my training was not optimal at that moment. And it was because the kickboxing coach had no understanding of grappling and kind of like dismissed what I wanted and just kind of pushed his kickboxing thing. And that being said, he's a good kickboxer, right? But kickboxing is not MMA. Mm-hmm. And so, like, for example, what do kickboxers and boxers wear on their hands?
Gloves.
Boxing gloves, right? Yeah. Do we use boxing gloves in MMA?
Not the last time I checked.
No. So, like, you're training. Do you think you would get good at tennis by playing with badminton rackets?
No.
Or badminton with tennis rackets, right? It's like you play, you should train with the equipment that you're going to fight in, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, right? And so going to the boxing guy and doing all this stuff, I don't think it's going to work. And like I said, for me, it didn't work. But the thing is, because I'm kind of like dumb sometimes. So even though I knew it didn't work for me, the understanding was so much that you should train the styles individually and then go. And you only go to MMA when you're like high level. Yeah. And I used to say, you have to get a blue belt in jiu-jitsu before you do MMA. And you know what happened? I trained all my students, my first generation students, to hate MMA. Oh. Even though I was trying to train them MMA because like they felt comfortable in jiu-jitsu, and then they felt very uncomfortable in MMA jiu-jitsu to the point where they didn't want to do it. And I'm like, I did that. I taught them incorrectly because I followed what my teachers told me. But now we know. So I changed it. And every single class is MMA. That being said, the point that a lot of teachers make about sloppiness is very true. So a lot of MMA fighters are just like mediocre at everything. And they're not really good at anything. That is something that has happened because the opinion is the jack of all trades, master of none. So you little striking, little wrestling, and everything looks sloppy. That is a problem. And as a coach, you should be like, no, that's wrong, fix it. Yeah. No, that's wrong, fix it. And have, a very, very detailed curriculum of foundational moves that people need to master. Right. But like old jiu-jitsu, Japanese jiu-jitsu.
I know of it.
Yeah. So Japanese jiu-jitsu was basically MMA, but it was more than MMA. It was like, okay, I'm going to have a sword, and if my sword breaks, I'm going to throw you, and if I throw you, then I'm going to submit you, or I'm going to take out my other sword and stab you, or I'm going to punch you, take your helmet off and punch the crap out of you, right? Like there was no samurai that was like, well, I only do bow and arrow, right. Like doesn't exist, right? Like being a Swiss Army knife of martial arts is very important. So instead of having one skill, saying, oh, here's a knife, here's a screwdriver, here's a bottle opener, like all these, or scissors, whatever, like a Swiss Army knife. Yeah. You take out the tool that you need and be well-rounded, but well-rounded without sacrificing finesse and skill and refinement, which means, of course, you got to take your training seriously. So I think actually one of the reasons why people still continue to train individually is because the teachers are not good enough to make sure that the students get technical. Their teaching skill is not good enough. So they're like, oh, yeah, I have to focus on this a lot. So they get it. But if you're a good teacher, you don't necessarily have to do the focus. You can still get them to the skill. Right? So that's my opinion. That's not maybe, I don't know, maybe that's overstated. But we've seen huge improvement in our academy since I switched over to all MMA. And like, we're a little weaker in our newer students, a little weaker at striking, but we have that foundation of wrestling and grappling is very strong. And when you're grappling and wrestling strong, you can confidently strike because you're like, I don't care about getting taken down, you know? And I can also shoot whenever I want, you know? So, yeah, you know, I think we sacrificed a little bit of hand skill to develop more of the other elements, but it doesn't mean our guys aren't good at their hands. I have some guys coming up, and their hands, Sandro too, his hands are starting to look good. Devin, his hands are very unorthodox. Funny enough, he looks like a karate guy. He fights exactly like Thompson or MVP, bouncing around, this and that. But his hands are very dangerous, and he's a grappler. But you know, it'll take time to develop it. You know, I mean, look at Khabib. Khabib when he started, even Makhachev too. When they started, their hands, but Khabib's hands were terrible. Now Khabib, I would never say he was super Chris striker, but he was effective. I mean, he dropped Conor McGregor. You know, you drop Conor McGregor, you're doing something right. But Islam himself, even though he was started as a grappler, his striking is beautiful and precise and refined. And Umar as well, Umar Nurmagomedov, the whole team, they have some very nice striking. So, you know, it can be done and it should be done, right? The majority of your training should be in the sport that you're gonna compete in. You know?
There you go.
Yeah, but with obviously with caveats, like make sure it's not like a bunch of like hot garbage and technical.
Sure.
You know?
Bad MMA, still bad MMA.
But so this is a beautiful demonstration of the principle of like individual style training or mixed style training, which is gonna come out on top. Now, I won't only be that. It's like, you know, athletics and ability and timing and power and all these things. But like I said, I'm bullish for Oliveira, even though the majority of pundits are like Topuria, you know? So anyway, we'll see.
Oh.
Yeah.
You'll be laughing all the way to the bank, hopefully.
Yeah, and then there's the other title is Kai Kara France versus Pantoja. And I'm going to say it right now.
I like a metal band.
I love Pantoja.
I like Pantera.
Pantera. Rock on. Do you know Pantoja's story?
No.
So he did start in jiu-jitsu, and he was like a training partner for Jose Aldo. But he had no money, he had no notoriety, and he went up into American Top Team, and because he's like a 125er, he made no money. So he was driving an Uber job, driving Uber and doing deliveries and doing like dishwashing and training at the same time. And he was legitimately, out of all the champions in the UFC, the least genetically gifted, the least athletic of all of them. When I saw him years ago, he was terrible at striking. Like so bad. like just god awful, because you know, to get good at striking, you have to have a little bit of athletic knowledge, especially boxing. You have to have a good sense of your body. Now, he was beautiful jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is very forgiving of being a bad athlete because it can develop what you need. Like you can feel your way through things and overcome it and improve your athletics. I think I talked about this in a couple of other episodes that jiu-jitsu is this like weird art that develops your potentiality very high, right? Which is one of the reasons why we do MMA, but we do put an emphasis on the jiu-jitsu, right? And the wrestling. But he had really good jiu-jitsu, but his boxing was just pure trash. Now, in his last fight, which we didn't get to cover, so I'll talk about it, he fought this Japanese champion named Asakura. Asakura comes from a long lineage of really amazing Japanese kickboxers. And this kid has lightning in his hands and is really crisp and really amazing at striking. And people were like, and he was the Japanese champion in Ryzen. And then he came over to the UFC and immediately got a title shot. And the Japan was like, yes, our best striker. in MMA, and he's prepared as an MMA striker too. You know, like he's not just his Muay Thai all day. Like he's prepared as an MMA striker. But Pantoja is this. He's the little, you know, train that, you know, could, or whatever that is, right? You know, he's like slow and steady. This guy works harder than everyone else. And people are saying, you know, Pantoja's hands can't compare to, you know, Asakura's and things like that. Man, it was an epic fight and an epic beatdown.
Wow.
And Pantoja's hands looked like Golden Gloves pro boxing champion. I mean, they were like, pop, 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 and everything. And then, again, segue right into the grappling and boom, chokes him out. But he beat him standing to a pulp. He beat the snot out of this guy.
Wow.
And if you watch Pantoja's career, he went from terrible to mediocre to kind of good to better to unbelievable. Now, that is just pure unadulterated hard work. He's like the opposite of John Jones, you know. And then John Jones is cool, but John Jones had some pretty serious athletic gifts. Isn't his brothers like famous?
Yeah, they're all football players.
You're right. They're all famous, right? They're just a genetically gifted family. Yeah. Pantoja is not gifted. This guy is just the hard-working tortoise, you know, just pushing. And I love this dude. I absolutely love him, and I can't wait to see him. And he's gonna blow through Kai Kara-France. It's just gonna, like, different quality of fighter now.
Wow.
But that being said, Kai Kara-France is very good. You know, but this is like hard work. That is the path. That this guy is my unheralded GOAT in some ways, because he is the hardest working guy. He probably works like 10 times harder than everybody else. And then, like, nobody was paying him at 125. So he was a professional fighter while holding down 2 jobs. Dude, that is like unfair. And he still did it.
Wow.
Man, that's inspiring. You know, people tell me, oh, like, I don't have time to train 3 days a week. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, you can manage your time better. How much time do you spend, like, cycling through your phone or scrolling or watching TV? And you could manage your time better.
Sure.
You know, this guy guaranteed he would really managed his time. You know, and I'm just impressed with him. He's an amazing, inspiring character. To see his growth, you look at his career over time, it's inspiring. I can't wait to see him fight.
How long did it take him to go from where you saw him first to now?
Well, I saw him years and years ago. I can't tell you, but it's over 10 years ago. Wow. It's way over 10 years ago. And I remember him being Jose Aldo's training partner when Jose Aldo was the champ. So we're talking, you know, the aughts, you know, 20 years ago, right?
Wow.
So I can't put an exact time on it, but I remember watching him. I'm like, oh, this kid's jiu-jitsu is good, but his striking is terrible. You know, and then he made it to UFC. I'm like,
he heard you.
Yeah, you heard me. No, I don't think so. But I want to say, like, I really respect this guy, and he evolves. Like, there's so many fighters in MMA. If you see him today, like, you watch Colby Covington or Mike Gaethje, right? Watch Gaethje 10 years ago. Watch Gaethje today. It's basically the same guy. Watch Michael Chandler today. Watch Michael Chandler. It's basically the same fight, right? You know, you don't see this like crazy evolution of ability. You know, it's nice to see it. And now, you know, speaking of John Jones, you know, do you heard the news?
I saw him signing something on Instagram today.
He's retired. He's hanging up the gloves.
Good.
So the UFC just today crowned Tom Aspinall the new heavyweight champion. Right, and that's another guy that I really respect. He's going to be. This is my prediction. He's going to be, I think, the most competitive and most decorated heavyweight UFC champion of all time. I think he's going to be the UFC heavyweight GOAT. In 10 years, going to be like, there was Tom Aspinall and there was nobody next to him.
Wow.
He's the GOAT. Just like John Jones was in light heavyweight, for sure. You know, but he's going to be the heavyweight GOAT. Stipe Miocic is right now considered the best because, I mean, he retired, of course, but he had the title for a long time. But even his title run is not that long compared to some others.
No.
But I think Tom Aspinall is going to hold that title until he retires, or unless he gets injured. That's, of course, you can't predict that. But this guy's beautiful technique and everything. And he did start individual styles. His dad was a jiu-jitsu guy. Started him really young. But then he would take him to kickboxing schools. But the cool thing is, his dad wasn't like a crazy sports dad. Like, you know, you got to be the next champion. He's like, oh, you want to come and train? Like, he didn't force him, you know?
Nice.
And he's like, okay, let's train. And then the kid had aptitude. He's like, what do you want to do? He's like, oh, I want to compete more. And he started developing his jiu-jitsu was very young, but he segued to MMA very early. Like, I think when he was like 14 or something. I don't know exactly because I've only heard his interviews here and there, but he segued to MMA training very early. But he has very crisp kickboxing, and very crisp wrestling, and absolutely beautiful jiu-jitsu. He moves like a lightweight that's 240 pounds.
Wow.
He's amazing. So he deserves to be the champion, and I think he's going to hold it for a long time. And he's a good representative of the sport for the most part. You know, he seems like a nice guy.
For now.
For now, yeah, we'll see.
They always start off, and then they get fame and glory and stuff like that. Hopefully, hold strong.
So that's what to look forward this weekend. I think we can talk and see if my predictions came true.
Yeah.
But my point is this: it's like train in the sport that you're gonna do, but also the same thing. If you're interested in self-defense, train in more self-defense environments. Like this one day a week while we spar with that taser. You know, because MMA is not the same as, you know, a knife assault as I don't want
very clear. Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. Should we talk about it? All right. I guess we're going to talk about it. I'm so tired of talking about it. All right.
You don't have to talk about it.
No. I guess we got to do it.
What happened?
So it's a weird thing. And actually I have to really watch what I say because there's still ongoing legal issues. But I'll say this. There was a student who I kicked out of Radical for bad behavior, and he came to the academy under the influence one night, and also his attitude wasn't good, a lot of other issues, right? So I kicked him out, right? And I said, you got to train somewhere else. But I also, you know, at that time I said, you know, you need help, right? You know, you need, so I tried to like steer him into some, you know, AA or whatever, right? Because he was really abusing alcohol and whatever, and other things too, we found out. But he kind of had this obsession with our academy, and over years he would write like bad reviews, or he would email, can I come back? And I said, no, I don't think so. And then he'd write F you know, things like that, right? I mean, I'm just paraphrasing.
It's a bad girlfriend.
You know? Yeah, and it was like a kind of thing where he was calling up other students, and they had to block him, and it was weird. A couple of students asked me, he's like, why he keeps messaging me? I'm like, you know, just block him. But that was years ago. That was literally 3 years ago.
Wow.
So nothing happens. He just, every now and again, there's something annoying. So he shows up at our academy on one of the nights that one of our guys is fighting. And I'm not there. And he seems agitated and a little weird. So my students are like, this guy's a little weird. But he wasn't violent in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't there, so he left. He came back 3 days later looking for me. And he started spewing a lot of weird stuff. And obviously, I'm like, well, this guy needs some serious help. Like, he needs help, right? But I'm like, you can't train here. I escorted him out. And, you know, I'll just leave it at that. I escorted him out. And, but it seemed like I said, you can't come back. Our time is done, but I really wish you the best. And we party's like, okay, I won't come back, right? And I thought it was settled, right? It was try to be a helpful presence rather than like anything aggressive or anything. I never thought that it would become something. What I didn't realize is for months he was standing outside the academy across the street. People thought he was just some homeless person, but he was staring at the academy for like hours in the rain and things like that. That's what students told me. They said, oh, that he used to hang out on the street across the street. I've never seen him because I'd be teaching, right? That being said, it shows, you know, situational awareness and understanding what is important. So he developed this obsessive relationship. And also, as I understand, he became addicted to very heavy, you know, different types of illicit drugs. And his brain is just gone. And he showed up, and it was a Saturday morning, getting ready for team training. And Sandro, he shows up, and one of the students opened and was, you know, like kind of like training on his own. And he comes up, he's like, where's Rene? And my student said, well, he's not here right now. So he left, and he was walking across the street. And then he came back an hour later, approximately, and I wasn't there, but there were police across the street. So I think that rattled him. And he came in and he pulled out a huge, like Rambo style military knife, like huge. And as one of my students was taking off his shoes and had his back to him, he barged in the door, picked it up, and did a psycho, stab right to his back to kill him. And he had said that he was waiting for me, but I wasn't there. So he attacked Sandro because Sandro's kind of like our marquee student. Sandro, I mean, you couldn't start a knife assault in a worse manner. Sandro's crouching over, his back is turned, undoing his shoes, and a guy stabs him in the back. And Sandro said he thought he was playing, like the guy was like play wrestling with it. But then he saw, like he felt the knife. He's like, what? And he felt kind of like heat in his back. And he turned around, clinched it, took him down. Now, the assailant, whose name I won't say, is a very tall person. He's very tall. So, he took him down and he was holding the knife. But that the length of the arms was such that he actually had to fall backwards for a second, pull guard, to get a sweep and get more secure position. And then he put him in a arm control, actually wound up biting. This is one thing we teach in our system. So he bit the hand and actually held the knife blade itself. And which is actually what I teach, right? So he like did our defense to the T, controlled the knife, bit the guy's hand so that the guy had to let go, and he took a chunk out of his hand too, right? And then it was over in about 3 seconds. Then my other students jumped on him and held the guy down, and within seconds the police were there and they arrested him. Wow. Thank God Sandro only had a few cuts on his back, nothing serious, and he was not hurt. But a few inches further, he could have nicked his carotid, the spinal column, something like that. But
this guy's not even good at stabbing people.
I know, right? And yet, but I mean, I would say, hats off to Sandro for executing, the knife defense system that we do, which I want to get a shout out to a lot of people who taught me, particularly Burton Richardson, who we had on the podcast, who always, emphasized really, really important knife defense fundamentals. Control the knife, control the blade, control the knife first. Don't worry about position as much as the knife control. And that's exactly what Sandro did.
You're supposed to hold the blade?
It's funny. Okay, do you ever see the movie Rob Roy? You got to watch that movie. Okay. It's a great movie. And there's this fencing scene in the back, and it's this like amazing fencer versus Liam Neeson. I don't want to ruin it, but there's a point where he does something legitimate, which is actually in all historical martial art treatises in the West, is you grab the blade. And that's a very effective. You think it's going to cut your hand, but if it's trying to chop down, that's not. But if the blade is isolated, you grab it, it actually doesn't hurt you. Like Sandro didn't even get a cut on his hand, right? But you're holding the blade. It's something like you can use that blade, particularly a big blade like the one that was attacked with, as a lever to disarm. And this is exactly what he did, right? Because like if the blade's here and you hold the blade, that leverage is quite strong and breaks the grip. Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. And I want to shout out to Burton Richardson for all his wonderful instruction on BJJ for the street. And knife defense street, clinch for the street, all these concepts, which really became a core of what I teach.
So a little commercial for Radical MMA. You guys do self-defense teaching?
Yes, absolutely. Like if you don't have a background in, so some people got a little freaked out about what happened, and I totally understand. I researched, but I'm like, if a crackhead with a knife is such a frightening prospect that you're like, oh my God, I can't deal with that. Man, you got to train a little bit harder because that is the number one assault paradigm you're gonna face. If you're getting fist fights in bars, then that's not self-defense. That's ego. You could just walk away from it. It's gonna be some crazy person in the street for men very often, like someone you don't know comes up to you and tries to stab you, mug you. In New York, that's what's gonna happen. It's like a lot of things like that. People crazy or very violent who are there. Yeah. And I actually had an experience, which I kind of don't like to talk about too much, but so I was sitting at a restaurant. It was a bizarre experience, right? I was sitting, and this is a complete failure of all my martial art training. So we get to this restaurant, and there's the maitre d' is going to sit us down, and she sits us in these seats, and I see that there's like a bag where she sat us, and I'm like, oh, there's a bag here. I don't know, whatever. So I start looking at the menu, and then this older gentleman, comes up. He starts screaming at me, the top of his lungs, "Get out of my effing chair, F5!" And I'm like, whoa. And my first reaction was like, he's an older person. Let me show respect. And I'm like, sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Let's talk to the maitre d'. But he was flipping out. What I didn't realize, he backed up into a silverware tray and grabbed a huge steak knife and was about to stab me until my friend who was with me pulled me out of the way and said, get distance. Because I was like, oh, you're a wonderful old man. Let me tell you. What I think was, because that restaurant was right near what we call Port Authority, which is a big subway and train station. And there's a very big prison upstate called Sing Sing. And they get these buses that come down from there and they let them off. And I think that guy literally just got out of prison.
Jesus.
And he was like, this is his first meal. But he was like, in prison rules.
Yeah.
You took my seat, because I guess in prison, you take your seat. It's like life or death. Like, he was literally going to stab me because I was sitting in a seat. And, you know, situational awareness and distance. And, but you know, that kind of keyed me into, that was years ago, keyed me into like, man, we have to really talk about like these like surprise knife attacks. And so it became a big part of my curriculum. Yeah. And it's something we do all the time. And we spar with it all the time with the taser. And like, you know, like you, of course, you know the taser.
I know the taser.
For those who don't know, I sometimes have fun tasing Matthew.
Yeah. What is it? RadicalMMA.com?
Radical MMA NYC.
NYC.
Right? But we're not here to do plugs, you know, just.
I'm plugging it.
Well, thank you. You know,
good school.
Like, to use this as like an advertising, this situation as an advertising thing seems a little self-serving, because it's like Sandro went through something very awful, and he was very nice. He did an interview and he said, you know, I'm glad it was me and not my instructor, because you know, Rene is a really old past his prime, you know. And I'm like, thank you, Sandro, I guess. But the other thing is, I feel the same way. Is like, why the guy was there for me, and I wish I had been there instead of him, because the last thing I want is for my students to go through that. And you know, it was very unfortunate. And the funny thing is, people said, "Oh, you need a door lock," but the thing is, the guy barged in while another student came in front of him, so the door lock wouldn't even, because there were all these students coming in at the same time, you know. And he, you know, so it's like, how do you protect it? You gotta pay attention to your surroundings, you know. And but it was a terrible situation. But now Sandro's fighting for the title, and
moving on
his title this weekend, so we put it behind us. And, you know, but yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, you can't doubt that the radical knife defense system does work.
It works.
It works. All right.
Beautiful.
All right. Thank you very much. I really great back on the podcast, and super excited to go forward. And maybe we can add some video that can show some knife defense stuff that you know.
Sure.
Add in.
I got this knife down here.
You got a knife down there?
Oh, I dropped it.
Finger lock.
You win.
Wally J. Finger lock. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and it's always great to be back. Thank you to all listeners for waiting patiently for
Wait for that one. Thumbnail.
Stay strong, stay sharp forever. The warrior's path is never through. Keep training hard and breaking through. Discipline's the bond we hold true. Martial culture, it's all in you. So until next time, keep the fight.